television has been living with us for 65 years. But what's happened to it in the 15 years since Channel 4 went on air has changed the way we feel about it, the way we think about it, and the way we watch it. The birth of the new channel coincided with technological advances that would radically change our viewing habits and attitudes. Televisions are now found in 99% of homes, and over the last 15 years, 55 million have been bought in the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland. The changes of the last 15 years have given us far more power to decide what and when we watch. So who's in control? The TV or us? The remote controllers? To find out how we watch television, 4 households agreed to be filmed at home. The Simpsons from Gravesend have got 2 children, 2 TVs, 4 channels and 1 video recorder. The TV is a central part of their lives.
If me and Terry ever got divorced, he could have the kids and we fight over custody of the TV, I think.
We would fight over the kids because
I don't want them.
It's like
I don't want them,
getting
so
out.
there you go.
She doesn't look so good, is it?
The Murphy family are a new breed of TV lovers, with their 6 televisions. 15 years ago, only a quarter of us had more than one. With a television in every room, even one day without it proved too much for the Murphys.
There was one day that we didn't have a telly. And we thought we'd talk, but we just sat around silent.
And then somebody come up with the idea, hang on a minute, you don't need an aerial up to watch television when you've got a lot of videotapes around, so we just throw a few videos in and got by like that, and we got the aerial put up, didn't we? But it was a godsend when the satellite dish went back up again, I must admit.
Self-confessed techno-head Ridian Jones can barely remember the television world of the early 80s and is proud of his 3 TVs and access to 40 channels.
Look, press this button, yeah? Yeah. And turns on subtitles. Look, cool, isn't it? My pride and joy is this. It's a Philips 32-inch widescreen TV, which can display in all formats up to 16:9. Usually I have it on super wide mode, which actually shrinks the picture down slightly because, as it says on Channel 4 Telesex pages, 16:9 viewing is far better for the brain than having your eyes close together.
Even Ridian's grandmother owns 3 TVs. In her time, she's seen a lot of television, and living on her own, it's a vital part of her life.
Former Prime Minister John Major, who advised both Diana and Charles during the divorce.
I find that TV is good company for me, yes. And I love the wildlife, of course. It's one of the highlights of me watching television, the animals. But if it's something to do with stalking his prey, then I have to switch it off and then come back again to something else. Or not off, I flick the remote control and then come back after the dreaded deed is done, and that's it. Oh dear.
These were some of the highlights on this night 15 years ago. On the fledgling Channel 4, Brian Inglis with What the Papers Say.
Oh, not the wet celeryans are flying in.
The established channels, BBC and ITV, had the likes of LOLO and the Krypton Factor. To make the choosing easier, we had a gadget, the remote control.
I think we've seen more changes in television since the early 80s than at any other time since its inception. These changes have been manifest in terms of the rapid growth of VCR usage in this country, the rapid growth in availability of remote controls, and they obviously have a much wider choice of programming to choose from than they ever had before, all of which have altered the style in which people watch television at home. So I think the changes that we've seen over the last few years are very significant, but there'll be nothing like the changes we'll see over the next 10 years.
On average, we watch about 3.6 hours of television every day. That's about 25 hours a week. And we spend more time watching television than we do on any other leisure activity in Britain. And the amount of time we spend watching television has actually increased over the last 15 years overall. In the last sort of 3 to 5 years, we've started to see it plateau and slightly decrease. But overall, it's still our most popular leisure activity.
Although we now take the remote control for granted, And these days it's hard to find a telly that will work without one. It was in the 80s a huge technological breakthrough. Gone were the days of getting up to change channels. Our wish was its command. No one thing has so changed the way we watch TV.
The creation of the remote control has been a very important step into the way in which families have organized the way to experience entertainment. A faster change of the kind of content that was there. What we call today zapping has stimulated very much this appetite of being in control of everything and not losing anything. And I think that zapping, as a matter of fact, is this, the first step of personalizing the, let's say, the content of television.
The remote control is obviously one way in which the family demonstrates who controls the use of the TV set. And we know that there are different types of family structure, different types of style of communicating, which you can find in different types of families. So some families are much more sharing, much more democratic in the way in which they do all kinds of things. And those sorts of families tend to be the ones where mum and dad will discuss the use of the television set with their children. They will encourage their children to manage their own viewing. Then you would find in a more authoritarian style of family, styles of parental discipline are very much based on do what I say rather than do as I do.
Her boobs are hanging out the bottom, I'm telling you. That is a titty hanging out of a dress. I'm not letting you watch that, Terry. Your cholesterol's high enough. I don't want your blood pressure going through the roof. The woman's titties are hanging out. There should be something done about it. I love this film. I love this film.
Robert Mitchum in Scrooge.
I have sole possession of the remote control, which I think is very important.
On the toilet, we use it.
Which I think is very important for the mother to have the put it back. Sole possession of the remote control, and this is my telly. I say what goes on this one because I clean it. I got control of the remote control because I think, as soon as I've got the family brain cell, today, that it should be mine. It's just too technical for the rest of the family. They're men.
Tim, do you remember
men
before,
can't get technical.
We tried to get the remote control and Mum had an alarm on.
Oh, yeah.
She was sleeping and she snores in her sleep.
We were
trying to get the remote control. Every time you got within about 10 centimetres, she goes...
and we'd put a glasses case in her hand, something on her nose, something in her hair, just to get the remote out.
Quickly swapped it round.
It doesn't occur to them to go and turn it over on the telly.
I'm sorry, no, not play days, not play days. I hate play days. What's on this side? Oh my God, it's even worse. No. What's that? That's rubbish. So what's this? We'll look at this for a minute, shall we?
When we first got remote control, we used to tell him it was magic. We used to say, right, if you're really, really good and if you think very hardly and if you believe in fairies, the television will change channel. Oh, great entertainment value. I know. They was really upset when they found out it wasn't real, but I used to think that you used to have to put your feet off the floor to do it for some reason. So every time I used to turn the television over, I should lift my feet off the floor and press it.
The remote control is very interesting because therein lies the power over the television. And if we look at remote control usage, you see some age-based differences. Younger people are more likely to use the remote control. Sort of people in their 60s and above, I think around 1 in 4, say that they're still nervous and perhaps don't use the remote control. But I think even more important is looking at who has control over the remote within the household. And often we find it's still a male-dominated thing. And ultimately it's about who calls the shots in terms of which programme to watch.
It was your boys who jumped here.
I love using the remote control. I probably use the remote control more than anyone else when I'm watching television because I just can't settle down to watch one programme quite often. And I'll just flick through from channel to channel, and channel hopping as they call it.
Excuse me, you're blocking the rays of my remote control.
Television's no fun unless you've got a lot of channels and you can skip through the channels. And it would be definitely no fun if you had to get up every time and turn the television over from the set itself. That would be no fun at all.
We've got 6 telly remotes. Then all the videos have got remotes. The Sky's got a remote.
Now we've got one for all 3.
then we've got one for all three.
Yeah, you've probably got about a dozen remote controls in the house. That's not counting the CD players with remote controls as well.
Back in the early 80s, less than a third of us had more than one TV. But they've spread throughout our homes. Now there are 2.2 for every household. This Christmas, about 700,000 televisions will have been bought. That's a lot of opportunities to watch the Queen's speech. Back in 1982, the TV would have had pride of place in the living room. Now they're as likely to be found in the kitchen or bedroom. The building of new homes shows just how entrenched television has become. Now the TV is often the starting point for designers, as integral to the house as the plumbing.
This is the Laurel house type. This is a typical 4-bedroom house, part of our new range. It's been designed specifically for a young couple with 2 children. And if we move into the lounge now, you can immediately see that the whole lounge has been furnished from the point of view of the television being the focal point actually in the corner of the room. I don't think we'd have anticipated back in the 80s that we'd have to equip every home with 3 TV sockets. If you go back into the 80s, the typical wimpy home would have had just 1 socket in the corner of the lounge, and if you'd have wanted extra sockets in the house, you would have had to have paid for those yourself. Centred around this room. And thoughtfully we've placed a television point, there's an aerial point and a plug point down here, and if you use the right kind of portable television, it can be angled towards the eating or the homework area, or indeed to the kitchen area as well. Now, of course, in the bigger houses, it's 3 TV sockets, and even in our very smallest house, you will find 2 TV sockets, one in the lounge again and one in the master bedroom. Children are asleep, hopefully. Close the door. Here you are, cocooned in your own master bedroom, snuggling up in bed, watching your favourite television programme.
When you first get married, you get your television set, and then you think, well, we would like to watch a little bit of television in bed. So you buy one for the bedroom. The first child comes along, and when they get to about 5 or 6, Mummy, can I have a television? Yeah, no problem. So you get one, and the next one comes along, and it's the same thing. And we just collected them. And they're not all brand new. Some of them about 6, 7-year-old maybe. And like I say, one of them is actually about 19-year-old. But we just collect them. Same with video recorders. We just collect them.
It's getting a kind of diffuse presence. It's there. It's a part of the things that are going on in the room, and wherever you go is a kind of company, and is supporting you with a live presence, although it's not alive. But I think it's the first idea of the virtual companion, and this is also related to a growing comfort in the home. At the moment in which the central heating was not there were only few places in the room that were actually heated, so that the comfort was located in one place. And the distribution of the central heating has created a very diffused comfort. And so I believe that the fact that television has spread around in this way is not unique for the television, but has been following actually the growing comfort also of the way and the place in which we live.
Coronation Street will come on, but we'll all be in different rooms to watch it. And if something really exciting happens, we tend to meet on the stairs and talk about it. We'll all come out of our rooms and say, did you see what happened there?
Then once the adverts are over, everybody just disperses back to their own rooms, even though we all realise we're watching the same programme. It doesn't really matter. It's where everyone's comfortable.
TVs are cheaper, so many households can afford more than one. And as with other goods, it means that they become more common in the household. The television is almost a piece of furniture. It's so common, it's so much part of the background. So it's generally a very friendly, sort of benign relationship. And women's magazines, say in the 1950s, they very much oriented towards positioning the television as this kind of friendly, kind of household pet, a helpful part of the family. And gradually, over the years, that has become reality.
We're doing
Many people will prioritise the TV over even things like the telephone. And if you look at penetration of different technologies, more households have a TV than have a phone.
I'm very fond of my television. I like my television. I take care of it better than I do the boys. Or Terry. My television gives me hours of enjoyment. I can't say that about my family.
The television set has come a long way in 15 years. With better technology, the picture and sound quality have improved enormously. And as TVs have become more sophisticated, so have the people using them. The younger generation are at one with today's techno-TV culture. For someone like 19-year-old website designer Ridian Jones, having all the latest technology on tap is essential.
A lot of my life is spent in the company of screens, really. I've got a very large TV screen here by normal standards, and when I'm not watching this, I'm on one of the computers, which have 14-inch and 12-inch screens respectively. When you're out clubbing, you can't get away from screens everywhere promoting the latest beers. So I can imagine someone from an older generation possibly saying I spend too much time in front of the screen. I would say that, if anything, it's a beneficial thing. Television, computers, new media, they're all learning tools. Now, I read a lot of books as well. I read books, I read magazines. I spend more time watching television than I do doing that. But that is simply because it's a more accessible format. It's a more relaxing format. You can relax yourself more when you're in front of the screen. And if you have the right number of channels, you control it rather than it controlling you.
Check out the theme tune on the surround. I heard this the other week. It's bloody nice.
Got standard terrestrial. I also have some of the channels which a low-powered aerial couldn't receive, such as Channel 4 England, and BBC One England, and BBC Two England, and ITV England. Whereas here we have Welsh versions of them. I also have input from 3 of the ESTA satellites, 1A through 1C. Through this I have roughly 40 channels available.
What is happening with the younger generation today is that they have a vast array of content available to them through a number of different channels, visual and auditory and text, simultaneously. And children and teenagers in particular have these days learned how to cope, whereas older people find it a jumble. They find they can't create any structure.
Norma Williams, Ridian's grandmother, lives just around the corner. She's not so at home with the changes she's seen and struggles to keep up. Although she worries about technological changes, for her, television has never lost its magic.
Gosh, we couldn't get enough of the television. Once we had it, we really had something wonderful, yes. Yes, I'll never forget the experience, because when we went to a friend's to see the coronation, and I was longing to have one of our own, and my father bought it, yes. Ridian got very interested in television because of me. I bought them the first television set. And he's much more into it now than he ever was before. And he understands such a lot about it, which is wonderful. If I have a problem, he'd come immediately. I'm sure my friends too. I wouldn't like to have a large television set for myself. I'm not used to all the gadgets and everything. I'd have to have Ridian down to tell me how to work different things, because I'm afraid I've got a mental block when it comes to the technical side. Well, I've got 3 in the house at the moment. Yes, 1 in the bedroom upstairs. I did have more, but Ridian went to have a look at them to see if they were working properly, and they weren't as good as he thought, so.
In general, she only has 1 or 2 shows which she really has to watch, and they're Blind Date and the Antiques Roadshow. My grandmother only has 5 television channels, and that's only because I put Channel 5 in for her. She doesn't have a video recorder, so she doesn't time shift at all. She doesn't have cable, even though she could have it in where she lives. So she's not really. She is a bit technophobic. It's not that she doesn't want to know about it, it's that in a way she's scared of it, which is quite weird.
Well, when I go into his flat and see all the paraphernalia, I'm not a bit surprised, because I don't know what's waiting for me the next time I go, you know. But I try to show and you know, that I'm interested. Well, I am interested, but it seems such a lot of explaining, and he keeps on, and I wish I knew more about it, really, to converse properly with him. But I don't know enough, you see, and at this age I don't think I ever will.
In general, she will just watch what is on, including some of the absolute rubbish daytime programmes put together by the BBC and ITV. So our viewing patterns contrast quite a lot. I put on what I want to watch. She will watch what is provided for her.
The first time any of us could watch what we wanted, when we wanted, or effectively self-schedule was when the videocassette recorder arrived. In the early 80s, they were state-of-the-art, and only 6% of us owned one.
VCRs took off in a big way in the 1980s in this country. In fact, we probably had more VCRs in this country, and there was a more rapid growth in VCR penetration in this country than in most other countries. That was largely to do with the fact that we didn't really have many channels to choose from, and the VCR provided sort of fifth channel almost for viewers. And also the quality of programming that was being put out was such that viewers would want to capture some of it to view it again.
We can't use our VCR at the moment because it's broken, and I just don't know what to do. I can't watch my Mr. Darcy. I just don't know what to do. I fill it up, I get all emotional.
We have an abundance of videotapes upstairs.
About 400.
And
If only we could get Channel 5 quite
when
Zena,
there is,
the
we look,
workmanship.
because sometimes there is just nothing on TV to watch. I know it sounds sad with 4.5 channels now. So what we do is, from the selection, we just pick up a video and put it on. There is, as I say, the TV is on the vast majority of the day. Whether it's programmes on as a background, or we're watching them, or it's video.
Getting a video would help a lot, but then again, I don't know whether it's that necessary to me. I don't want to be hooked onto anything very much at my age. I like to be a free spirit and to choose what I want to do, whether to go out or not, or come in, and this is the way I am. I don't like, and I shouldn't say these things, inhibited with soaps. I don't want to be inhibited. I was at one stage with Dynasty and Dallas, the American side, because I like to look at the decor in the house and all that, you know, and the beautiful gowns, clothes, and. But as for anything else, I'm not hooked up on any soaps at all. And younger people are, you know.
I have two primary VCRs, both of which are NICAM. That's important because the TV is a surround sound.
Yeah, I saw this bit earlier. Waiting for Frasier to come on.
I use the videos a lot for time shifting. Because of the way I work, there are times when I've had to work more than 30 hours with very few breaks and no sleep.
This will be fun. Oh, yeah, hang on, I've seen that too.
VCR, I think, has also created the opportunity to enter into a new area, which is the one of the electronic bricolage. So to actually combine and put together programs that are the results of the selection of many of, and has opened let's say, the way of the understanding of the great opportunity of the personalized entertainment or information media. And therefore, I think has created a completely different way to look at the television. The individual feels less maneuvered, less under the power of an invisible power, but it feels more in control.
We have more power than ever before over how and when we watch. At the same time, there's been disquiet about what we are watching and the effect it might have. Violence, sex and swearing offend large sections of the audience, and TV companies have had to respond. Contrary to what we might believe, recent research shows that violent scenes on TV have actually halved since 1986 and now make up only 2% of all programming.
We have arrived.
A violent program like Target, if allowed at all, would probably be banished to the small hours.
I'll break your bloody neck.
There are lots of, I think, distorted views and misconceptions about the effects that television has on the way we behave, generally. Very often these concerns focus on television's influence on so-called antisocial behaviour, and that television programmes set bad examples of behaviour which children in particular will copy. The evidence for a cause-effect relationship there between television and how people behave is very mixed and inconclusive.
We don't really agree that television can affect the way children are. But what we liked to do when the children were younger was control how much television they actually watched. And we were quite strict when the kids were younger. The bedtime was at a set time. They went to bed, the television was off. And as they got older, the bedtime got later, so they naturally could watch more and more television. We didn't really lay down any guidelines as to what they would want, what they would watch. All the children watch a lot of television. They watch a lot of videos. But it's not affecting Liam. It's not affecting his development. He's an intelligent, reasonably mature boy. And I don't think it's affected Pamela or myself either. It's just one of those things. You live with it. You live with television every day of your life. And if it is having any effect on us, I can't see where it is having an effect.
There's things that we won't let the children watch. It varies. Like I say, perhaps we'll watch it first and then see whether or not they can watch it. I mean, the people say that violence on the television, but there's some programmes that have got to be violent. The world is violent. I mean, they have the bill with no swearing. I just can't understand that. In these soaps, nobody swears.
And
it's just that's not true to life.
If they take all the bad stuff off of programmes, there's always going to be the news, so they're going to have to take off the news.
No, what's that off?
But then you won't have any information.
No, you see
and they cut the
kids being
out.
shot in Bosnia or what have you.
And they cut all the swearing.
And it's on the news, which
some kids
although
watch
it's
the
factual. So, and the boys watch the news. Thank you very much.
It's a strange irony that the age group we fear will be most heavily influenced by TV are actually the ones who spend less and less time in front of it. Children's viewing figures have dropped by 2 hours a week since 1993. Which should be music to the ears of Rydian's grandmother.
When I used to babysit Angharad and Rydian, I used to allow them to look at television just to calm them down a little bit. That was my trick.
Don't let us live away!
We've argued about playing music very loud. Never about television, never ever about television, but about the music volume. I said, you'll be deaf when you'll be older. Rubbish, she used to tell me. He knows that I mean well, but I'm not trying to, stud his growth or anything like that. The concern about his health and everything, like we are, is a normal grandmother speaking.
TV has been accused of destroying the ritual of the family meal, and TV dinners of threatening the tradition of gathering around the table to eat. Half of us now collect around the telly for our supper.
One of the other changes that we've seen in recent years is that the way in which people eat their meals has altered. Traditionally, the family would eat together in the kitchen or the dining room around the table, and they generally wouldn't watch TV while they were eating. Now, with the growth of multi-set households, very often it's the case that when they're eating, they're also watching TV. I don't see this development as something which is particularly worrying. Again, it's a convenience thing, and also it fits in with changing lifestyle patterns where the family members increasingly these days don't eat together anyway because they're not all around at the same time. So you've got separate meals, you've got separate food preferences which are catered for, and it really depends on who's eating when as to whether they're eating properly at the table or eating in front of the TV set off their lap.
Knock a big fella like that off, but it went the other way.
Yeah, well, I thought it was going.
Television is accused of breaking up the family and causing fragmentation within the household. But if you go back in time and look at the 50s and 60s when television was new, it was talked about then as a medium which would bring people together within the household and actually encourage people to spend more time together as a unit. And that's still true today in many households. People sit down as a group and watch specific television programmes together.
We do watch as a family, don't we? Because
On the
Terry
whole, yes,
works long hours, you know, and the boys are at school, and we don't see each other a lot through the day. You know, so I mean, there's no time to argue or anything. You know, I just chat to the boys in the morning and they're gone. So basically, when we're home in the evening, watching the television, we can argue, shout, you know, get all the day's tensions out and that sort of thing.
The TV is on, it's not necessarily being watched.
Tim, you always argue. You do?
You do?
Oh, yes, you do! No, we don't.
TV can be used for a variety of purposes. There are occasions when all of us just want to escape in watching our favourite programme and don't want to talk to the other people sitting around us in the living room. But it's also a source of conversation. I mean, it often brings the family together.
Boys. Star Trek! Be a Star Trek, then the Nutty Professor.
You'll probably find that if the television isn't on, then people will just sit around reading newspapers or doing puzzle books or listening to the music. So in their respect, they've killed conversation as well. Channel 4 was the first new channel that I can remember. As far as I was concerned, there were always 3 other channels, and then Channel 4 came along. But at the same time, you can remember a little bit about it, but you just forget about it. And then after a while, it's always been there. It just blends in with everything else. When Channel 4 first came on, it was probably, God, this is going to interfere with your normal routine, because there's something extra.
Channel 4 was the first new channel on British television in nearly 30 years. And since it started in 1982, we've also witnessed an explosion of channels that was unimaginable 15 years ago. With cable and satellite, we can now access a multitude of channels, providing something for everybody at all hours of the day.
The audience is fragmenting because of the greater variety of content which is now being pumped out through cable and satellite as well as over-the-air terrestrial channels. I think it's only inevitable that as more and more channels are made available to people, that you will get a certain degree of fragmentation. I don't think it reflects a fragmentation of society. I think it reflects the fact that society has a wide range of interests, and perhaps those interests have not always been catered for by television in the past as much as they can be today, simply because there weren't the numbers of channels available.
It's not about the number of channels, it's about the choice. It is about the choice that's available to you. Because you have, for example, if I want to watch a movie, I have 3 movie channels that I can put on, which 2 of which run 24 hours a day.
So this is why you spent all the money on the education, is it?
If I want to watch general entertainment, I've got 5 general entertainment channels. There are times of the day where if you put on channels 1 through 5, you're not going to find anything of interest at all. Chances are, with the other channels, you have a choice. And it's also incredibly good for breaking news. I'm a bit of a news junkie. While I'm working, most of the day I'll have Sky News or CNN on in the background, so that if anything major ever happens, I can keep my eye on it. I just think it's important to stay informed, and I have an interest in current affairs and politics.
Daddy only wants cable so he can see Xenia the warrior princess, the scantily clad Amazonian woman.
It's on Channel 5.
We was given satellite when we lived in Gibraltar. It was actually part of the system that we got satellite.
It was cabled in, and we had 6 channels and 2 movie channels, Sky One,
Sky Sport.
CNN, Sky Sport, and the BBC World Service.
And Gibraltarian television. Oh dear.
Yes, started at 6 in the
Finished at
evening,
10.
finished at 10. Really exciting. I'm not willing to pay for more channels. If we had more channels on terrestrial, it would be good. However, I think we would get to see less, because you'd be flicking from one to another, and you'd see bits of this, bits of that, and you wouldn't see anything in its entirety.
I think the fact that there are a lot more television channels nowadays, it's a lot better, because it gives anybody and everyone a choice of what to watch. But saying that, I mean, there's going to come a point where there's going to be far too many. If there is such a thing as having far too many. Yeah, there is such a thing as having far too many channels. Because it's like people like myself now, very rarely you'll settle down to watch a programme. So the odds are, if they increase the channels by another 100 or so, you'd never get to watch anything fully.
The effect of choice on viewing is actually really interesting to look at. You might think that as people have more choice of channels to watch, they watch more and more channels. But in fact, the evidence suggests that there's a limit of around 10 to 12 channels that most people can sort of cope with in terms of their viewing habits. And there's some evidence to suggest that as channel choice really proliferates, and you get into the sort of 50+ channel zone, that people can just get overloaded and find it very difficult to deal with the choice available.
Some things have become simpler, though. During the last 15 years, schedules have become easier to follow, and with good reason.
The biggest challenge the schedules had to deal with in the last 10 or 15 years is the multi-channel environment, because you have to make sure that people don't get bored and slip away from your channel. And so you have to be all the time, in between programmes as well as during the programmes, you have to be inviting them to continue watching.
Do you watch that? No? Right, we'll try that side then.
Audiences are becoming more demanding because they're being given a greater range of programmes to watch. So they won't put up with programmes they don't like, because they know they can go somewhere else and get what they want.
I often think the people that work in children's television should be on drugs.
There is much more research done now than there was 15 years ago into audience habits, and all broadcasters find out who's watching and the type of people that are watching, so they can provide an alternative to the other person's schedules. I mean, we do research into other people's programmes as well as our own.
But not everyone wants to be reached. A select few choose not to own a television. Now only 1% of the population. They're a dying breed. Many of them are readers of the publication White Dot.
If you tell people you don't have a television, it's more shocking than if you say you don't believe in God. If you tell people you don't have a television, it's more shocking than if you say I don't have indoor plumbing. To think that you have any control just because you can click a different button takes away from the fact that you're still sitting there staring at a box. People say television gives you experiences. The truth is just the opposite. And that's just clear if you think about it. It's not giving you experiences, it's taking them away from you. Every hour that you spend watching television is an hour that you didn't spend doing something. And that could be anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be good for you. It could be going out and having a drink. It could be going to the laundromat. Think of the most boring thing you can think of. You know, hanging around waiting for your laundry to dry. You could fall in love. You could meet someone. You could get a new job. Anything could happen to you.
Here we go, Forger. Shut up, Star Trek.
Stardate 50203.1.
You're watching 4 hours every day, and that's 10 years of your life, you know, so that's a huge amount of time. That's half the time you're not working or sleeping. So if you think television is just, well, it's a little leisure activity, it's just a little thing I do, it's not. It's half the time that that you think that you're yourself. You know, if you're sleeping or you're working, that's somebody else's time, or you're not awake. The time that you have to be like a parent or a lover or anything like that, all those things that you wanted to be, that's got to be crammed into these 8 hours. And if you spend half of that time watching television, I don't know how you're going to do it.
We haven't had a television for about 7 years. Tom is 6.5, and we hadn't been married very long, so the television was inherited, really, wasn't it, from you?
It was, from my brother.
From your brother. And we decided that we wanted to, we wanted to do as much as we could with the children and not necessarily get into all the kind of arguments and fusses and things that children actually do over what kind of programme is good or not.
So we gave it to our grandma.
Yes,
We
hers
did.
had broken down.
We gave it to Grandma, didn't we? Because hers had broken down, and we didn't know that until very recently. But Grandma told them this summer that, in fact, her television was our television, and that they could have it back at any time they wanted. But we're not going to have it back just yet, are we, boys?
No.
No. I think the only thing that I really missed at one stage was that I came into work and everyone was talking about the fire, and I had no idea that there'd been a fire at Windsor Castle, and I would have to have waited for the newspapers at the end of the day to know that. But apart from that, I actually find that it's quite easy to pick up on what's happening in television. First, if you read the papers, you can always read what's either going to be coming on in the little blurb that tells you what's going to be coming, or you can read the reviews. You certainly hear other people talking about it all the time. So if I haven't heard something at work, then it's very unusual. So when I go out or I go to other people's houses, and the same with you, we can always talk about that. And the boys too, because they play with a lot of friends who know all about Power Rangers and Teletubbies, is it now, and all of those kinds of things.
We can only say that we have to look at television as any other object which is carrying a very relevant technology without accusing the television, because I mean, technology doesn't have an ethic in itself. It is the way in which it's used that is creating a positive or a negative effect. And we have used television. People has made the content. People has decided in which way to use it. I think television has already enabled us to be part of a broader community, as we are sharing common entertainment, common information. So we are living with definitely an awareness of the world. So in a way has given us, has created and facilitated the condition of develop one part of our culture as a global culture.
The only event we've really seen, well, it's really over the last 7 years on television, has been the death of the Princess of Wales. And on that day we went up to my parents, where we saw a lot of it on television. And interestingly, I think that where events of cataclysmic proportions like that take place, the television is quite a good way of binding a community together. And in that particular instance, it bound together a global community. And I think only television, it's the only media that can actually do that at the moment.
The Argentines were hiding behind a constant barrage from their guns set up inside.
From world events to crucial episodes of soap operas, television has given us plenty to talk about since 1982. Never have stories been brought to us with such immediacy. TV reflects the world around us, reporting and sometimes shaping our attitude.
Then, just before 10 o'clock, the moment Berliners awaited 20.
When the attack came, the Iraqis responded with deafening anti-aircraft fire.
In some respects, the TV is like a window on the world. I think in the 50s, a phrase that was used, which is very nice, is that it's an aeroplane for the mind. And in that respect, television helps us understand the world. We share common events through the television. There's that sense of it being a shared social phenomenon. Big events that happen on television, again, give us a common point of reference, something that, in a sense, brings people together as a nation. So in that respect, that's why we use the phrase social glue to describe the television.
During the 90s, a new trend, communal watching, has emerged. And it's about more than just having access to satellite TV. 50% of people who enjoyed pub TV sport could watch it at home. Watching at home, but in company, is also gaining in popularity.
Dad, I really didn't think that's a good idea. Mike, you bring my dad home in the car.
There's no need for that, I'm fine. Yes, there is. You're not walking up this afternoon. All right, if you insist. Will it be all right if I leave you to put the stepladder in?
Yeah, that's fine. Hang on, sir. Come straight back here after you've dropped my dad off and take this lot down.
We're here to watch Brookside, really, because I enjoy it. You know, it's a chance to get together and everything, socialise, not just to watch Brookside, to discuss everything as well. You know.
Yeah, it's much more fun watching it together as a group because you can talk about it and it's on your own. It's not the same. Brookside's like the reason we get together to watch it and talk. I think if you were a person that grew up with no television at all, you'd be a different person to if you grew up with television because it shapes your sort of personality in some way.
Yeah, if you didn't have a TV,
we know this girl at school who doesn't have a television and she's like an outcast.
They end up, calling you freak and everything, and you're left out in the corner and you're not, spoken to or anything.
It's weird if you don't have a television.
It's a good level of television as well. All families have crosswords every now and again. But you can bet your life that if you sat watching a television programme, you've had some crosswords, something could happen in that programme and everyone would want to talk about it. Again, it's an icebreaker if you've had a few crosswords. And it's also an icebreaker when you go to work. I mean, no doubt Pamela goes into work, girls are all sat in the canteen, one of the topics, did you see that last night? And then everyone has their own opinion on whether it was good or it was bad. And men are no different. Men talk about it in the same way. And it'll be a case of, did you watch the match last night? And you give your opinion. Everybody's a football manager. Everybody's a football player. But at the end of the day, I think everybody just lost themselves in television for a few hours that evening. And it also, talking about television is probably a large part of everyday conversation.
You just Coronation Street on Friday then?
Despite the radical changes of the past 15 years, TV still remains central to our lives. What other machine in our homes can entertain, educate, and bind us together with such effect?
I think I could put television aside the will as invention, as something that has definitely created an incredible element of change. Television as an object is so within our life, and the incredible evolution that is once again this image carrier is proposing to us in order to open a world of virtuality, which is even larger perhaps of the world of physicality. I think that television is one of the major inventions that our society has been confronted with, definitely.
I'm very fond of my television. I like my television. I think I have a very good, meaningful relationship with my television. For £5,000, I would go without television for a month. Completely without television month. I would even hand over my handheld television. I would not go to anybody's house. I'd do it for £5,000. I am a self-confessed couch potato.
She is really sad, isn't she?
No.
So I provoke it,
3 against 1.
She's sad.
Who doesn't think I'm not?
Who doesn't think you're not? Who doesn't think you're not?
As soon as television came on, the scene has brought us more together. Everybody, because we discuss the things we've seen and all that, Seeing is a wonderful thing to have in our lives. and things we wouldn't have been able to get to know about different things immediately when they happen. I think is remarkable. Maybe triangular arms from triangular trees. Triangular trees.
I've been feeling now it's gone, gone, gone. Ooh.
On New Year's Day, travel into the future. A media mogul is dead, murdered. He built an empire in cyberspace.
And Che Guevara off the net.
He changed the lives of millions. So, who killed the King of Chaos? Find out New Year's Day at 9.
Thank you.
Would you let these people dig up your lawn?
What do you want? We would like to dig a 4th hole.
This is one of those moments you dream about.
Oh, look at that! Fantastic trench. Now, if this brick was at Hampton Court, that would be a Henry VIII brick. I'm beginning to put money on it.
The Time Team are back, unearthing a new series starting Sunday, 6:25 on 4.
3 women have found life a struggle since the tragedy that shook the world. Why? Because they made their livings looking like Diana. Their stories next.